What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and so I got some stuff for you today that I want to talk about. It's mostly going to be around some free agency stuff, and more specifically, some potential cuts that are coming up and what I think about that. And then also a little bit of, pre-speculation. We're starting to get into that speculation and stuff for the draft. So I'm going to talk about a couple players and some reports that were out today about, in regard to the draft. So I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. I'll start with the free agency-esque or free agency type stuff. So the news regarding that. So there have been reports that, there's reports today that it is extremely likely, very likely that the Dolphins are going to cut Robert Quinn. He had 6.5 sacks last season, and it would save about $13 million on the cap if we did so. So for me, I think that we absolutely need to get an edge rusher in the upcoming draft, no matter what. But as far as that goes, I mean, honestly, if we keep Cameron Wake and maybe just restructure his contract so he's a little bit so we can save a little bit of or extend him, whatever, so we can save a little bit of money on the cap there. They also talked about in that same article about Andre Branch, it would save $7 million against the cap and $2 million in dead money. So honestly, I would like to keep Wake. I would like to re-sign William Hayes, because he's definitely one of the best run-stopping defensive ends we've had. He got hurt last year and tore his ACL, but that was due to the stupid don't put your weight on a quarterback rule, because as you remember, when we played the Raiders, he tried to adjust his body into a position that it's not naturally supposed to be in, so that way he wouldn't land on the quarterback and he tore his ACL. But anyway, so he should be ready. I would sign him again because he should be pretty cheap, and he's a great run-stopping defensive end, and he does a lot of good things. So I would keep him, keep Wake. Obviously, we have Charles Harris. I think that he still has a lot of potential. I don't think it's time yet to give a full evaluation on him. It's definitely not time to say he's a bust. I would for sure get rid of Andre Branch, save that $7 million. Personally, I would keep Quinn at least into training camp, if nothing else, and then see if, Charles Harris can step up, and then see if, whichever, edge rusher you draft, and then if you get one or two later on in, as an undrafted free agent or whatever, you see if those guys can rise above him. If not, then you just keep him, right, and go into the season with him. Otherwise, if you can find younger guys that could do as well, if not better, then, you get rid of him and you save that money. There was another report out that Josh Sitton may be cut from the team as well. Last season he tore his rotator cuff in like week 2 or whatever, and that was one of I think it was week 3. I think Daniel Kilgore went out first, and that was in like week 2. But anyway, and that was the snowball that initially went down the mountain, that eventually got bigger and bigger and bigger with all the injuries last year. But that's what started it, right? So as far as that goes, he's another guy. So we would save $5 million if we got rid of him. He's another guy that for sure I would keep, even more so than Robert Quinn, at least into training camp. Right now, again, if they draft how I think they should draft, obviously it's just my opinion, but they should get at least 2 interior offensive linemen in this upcoming draft. So having said that, he could eventually, be expendable. Well, until that becomes reality, I would keep him around because his cap hit's not that much, and to have an experienced and highly effective left guard going into next season that will be, at least theoretically fully healthy. I know he's getting older, and eventually we do want to replace him for sure, but I would at the very least keep him into training camp. And if you got, because if you got nothing better, or if the guys that you end up drafting, don't prove to be ready or ready right away, then you have him to fall back on, as opposed to, just creating a hole for no reason, right? And that's why the same thing with Quinn. Get rid of Branch for sure. Absolutely. He's been way too hurt, and he hasn't produced anywhere near what we wanted. But for the one season that Quinn was here, he had 6.5 sacks, which wasn't terrible. Right, I think him and Wake would have had more if we had more of a push on the interior of the defensive line. We lost our run. First, we lose William Hayes, which made our run game suffer. Then we start losing interior defensive linemen. Vincent Taylor went down. Ziggy Hood went down at one point. Just tons of injuries, right? And that started causing more and more problems. So I think that they would have done better if they would have had, more support. Anyway, so Quinn and Sitton I would definitely keep around at least through training camp, and, get them in and see what happens. I would still, like I said, I would still draft. My priorities for the draft are 2 interior offensive linemen, 1 interior defensive lineman, 1 edge rusher, a quarterback, and a cornerback for sure, right? Those are the things that I want. And then after that, maybe you could double up on something like maybe another corner or maybe a linebacker or something like that, right? And then of course, just whatever frivolous, random chance, guys you want to take in or bring in, as undrafted free agents, have at it. Whatever you want. I don't care. But, we shouldn't be drafting a wide receiver or a running back. Certainly, if we were, then that'd be round 7, right? But if we're going to get something one of those positions, that needs to be undrafted free agent. Okay, so getting into a little bit of draft talk about a couple guys that I saw reports on. So speaking of cornerback, because I absolutely think that we need to take a cornerback at some point. We need to lock up Xavier Howard for the foreseeable future, and we need to get at least 1 cornerback in this draft, probably in the middle rounds, that we can try and get to, even, I would say, even if out of all of those positions of need that I consider positions of need, in round 2, if the best player available was a cornerback over a interior O-line or D-line or whatever, then take him, right? But anyway, so the report though was talking about a safety, Nasir Adderley. Okay, and here's some of the main reasons why they said that Adderley would be a good fit for the Dolphins. First of all, they acknowledged the fact that it's not really a need, because it's not. And then they went on to say that he could be a good fit, and here's some reasons. So first of all, they cited security on the back end is important, which is absolutely true. And then they started talking about the Patriots, obviously most notably because Brian Flores and a bunch of guys are coming over from there. They talked about Patrick Chung and the McCourty twins and blah, 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 right? Whatever. Okay, so yes, security on the back end is important. We have 1 cornerback for sure, Xavier Howard. Bobby McCain needs to go back to the slot without question. So you got your slot, you got one of your boundary corners. Now you need to find another boundary corner as far as safety. And so they brought in to the conversation, right? They talked about Jones and McDonald. So to transition to their second point, they said that Jones and McDonald are both too pricey and do not really fit the way that they want to do things. First of all, they're going to be playing a hybrid 3-4. So all the guys we have at safety could have hybrid 3-4-4-3 rather. So we're going to, it's not going to be just one. So all the guys could have prominent roles in that, hybrid scheme. Secondly, pricey Jones and McDonald are not that pricey, and certainly not for the production that they've given us, right? So that's kind of a moot point. Now, also though, because they were saying that because they're too pricey and don't really fit, that they're expendable. But here's the thing, again, it's senseless. Why waste a draft pick on something that, on a position we don't need, and we have really good guys that have, you know, good to great production and don't actually cost that much, when you could use that draft pick somewhere else that's more important, right? And so, like, we have Minkah Fitzpatrick, who needs to go back to his, you know, safety position instead of playing corner. And then you have Fitzpatrick, you have McDonald, you have Jones, you have Walt Aikens. So we have not only our starters, but we have our depth for the next few years. Why do we need to change that? Why do we need to make changes to that? Like I said, if you want to get a safety, like maybe at the tail end, like in round 7, or as an undrafted free agent, because yeah, the positions that you're good at, right, you should take chances on those undrafted free agents and so on and so forth. So like safety, running back, wide receiver, those are positions that I think we would take as undrafted free agents. Linebacker is kind of, for me, in the middle. I think that leans a little bit more towards that category, but I would still take a linebacker probably in like the 5th to the 7th round, right? But 2 interior offensive linemen, 2 D-line, 1 interior, 1 edge rusher, a quarterback, and at least 1 cornerback are my priorities going into this upcoming draft. And then all that stuff is just extra, right? You know, and so it's not needed. It would be a waste of a pick, especially a higher pick, to take somebody like that when we have other holes that are far more important. And you want your higher draft picks, right, to fill the biggest needs, right, and to fill the biggest holes on your roster. For us, that's interior offensive line, interior defensive line, and then edge rusher, and then cornerback, right? And then everything else is just extra. All right, so then there was another report about a defensive lineman, which makes sense, okay? So I'm not at all... None of the arguments for the safety are convincing. None of it. Because either some of it's not true, you know... I mean, sure, it's perspective. Some of it's perspective on, you know, what you're willing to pay. Like, as everybody's different. You know, some people think Jones is too expensive, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But to me, it would just be creating holes senselessly, because I don't see that for their production they're too expensive. And you're set at safety, man. You're set at safety. You know, get 1 or 2 young safeties as an undrafted free agent. You know, and then if you like them well enough, guess what? You can put them on practice squad and develop them. And then when Jones, you know, is done, or when McDonald's contract runs out and then you get rid of him, then maybe you have one that's been developed in your system that can then replace him. There's no point in creating that hole. It's just senseless. Anyway, so to the defensive lineman, Rashawn Gary. He's 6'5", 282. He had 134 career tackles and 10.5 sacks in college. So he's got some good traits that you would look for. And, you know, we need guys. He has position flexibility too, is one of the things that they talked about in the article. And he can play on the interior, he can play on the edge, and having a guy like that is going to be important, considering the fact that we are projected to have a 3-4-4-3 hybrid. So getting a guy like that, see, that would make far more sense than taking Nasir Adderley in round 1 or 2. I would take Rashawn Gary in those same slots over Nasir Adderley any day at this point, you know, in this draft, right? Because we don't need a safety. We're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. We have our starters. We have our depth. We're good. We're good. Okay? But we need D-line, especially with the potential changes. Anyway, so that's my whole spiel. You know, and so obviously free agency is going to be kicking off, you know, very soon, and then the draft soon after that. So we're going to be talking about this stuff a lot more coming up, but we're just getting kick-started. So that's what I think and how I feel about those particular guys. And so let me know what you guys think. You know, let me know what you guys... Oh, I'm sorry. There is actually one more thing before I head out, though. To finish what I was just saying, though, let me know what you guys think about, you know, Quinn and Branch and Sitton, if they should stay, if they should go. Do you think that, you know, it would be worth taking Nasir Adderley, and then, you know, what? Should we trade Jones, blah, blah, blah? What do you think? Rashawn Gary, would you take him over Nasir Adderley? Let me know what you guys think. But there's one more thing. So I got a question from Edward Manning, and he asked me why I have a problem with the two heads are better than one approach, right? So he's referring to my comments and stuff about Marvin Allen and Reggie McKenzie being brought in as, you know, advisors, or, you know, whatever the hell their, you know, actual role is. So here's the thing. I don't necessarily have a problem with that, right? I don't have a problem with anything as long as it proves, you know, to be factual, to be true, and to work and be successful, right? That's what I care about. And so here's the thing, right? In Stephen Ross's time, and this is part of the reason why I say I don't trust him, because in Stephen Ross's time, the choices he's made have not proven to work or be successful, right? And so one of the things, like I said, in this offseason, during these changes, the media, especially, you know, national and mainstream media, was praising Stephen Ross for, instead of in the past having like 5 or 6 guys that all have input, he was streamlining the front office, right? Which essentially, at one point anyway, meant that it was going to be Stephen Ross, who has Chris Greer reporting to him, and then Brian Flores reporting to Chris Greer, which I would say absolutely. That would have been, at the time, you know, streamlining it, right? But then you bring in these 2 assistants, now you have 2 more heads in there. So what my point is that you can't really use the defense or argument anymore that part of Stephen Ross's tactics, you know, because he said everything is being changed, we're going in a new direction, right? Well, you can't really say that anymore, because he's not. Because now he has all these guys in the room that are going to have input and say, you know, so it's that defense is invalid. Will it work? I don't know. I'm not placing judgment on that. I have not, you know, because I don't know. We have to wait and see. All I'm saying is that it's not actually any different than the previous regimes at this point, because now he has multiple heads in there instead of the you know, few streamlined you know, people that he had initially when he made these decisions, right? So do I think that there's do I think that there's value to having different opinions and perspective, you know, multiple eyes on it? Yeah, sure. But at the same time, it is also true that when you have a lot of if you have too many voices in the room, then you start to have, you know, communication problems and breakdowns, and then that can lead into other issues as well. So again, I'm not placing judgment on it, right? I'm not saying that it won't work or that it can't work, but the facts matter. And at this point, he's not doing anything different, despite, you know, the reports and media and people saying that he is, right? Because again, he went from having Mike Tannenbaum, Chris Greer, and Adam Gase as the guys that report to him. And then, of course, Stephen Ross, so that makes 4 heads, that makes 4 people in the deliberation room. This time, it's So wait, did I say that right? Tannenbaum, Greer, and Gase, right? And now this time, we have, for sure, we have Greer, Flores, Allen, and McKenzie. So that's, and then Stephen Ross. So that's 5. So now he actually has one more guy in the room than it with the last regime. Okay? And, so he's actually added to the voices in the room. And that doesn't even include Tannenbaum, which he may not even have a role. He may not have a voice, but they weren't clear about how he got reassigned in the organization. So we just don't know. But for sure, the last regime had 4 voices in the room. This regime has 5. Okay? So again, you just can't say that he's streamlined it. You can't. It's just not factual, because he's increased the amount of people that are in the room. And furthermore, again, you know, Dolphins fans are super frustrated. And here's the thing, right? So again, I've talked about how people get super emotional and then all they want to do is blame the quarterback and then like the head coach. No, that's wrong. Because it's wrong because it's not just the quarterback and the head coach that caused all of the problems. There's other people on the field, in the coaching staff, and there's other people that contribute that are factors in that equation, right? So it's not fair or accurate to just say that it's all those 2 people. So you have to spread it out appropriately to, you know, fully understand and properly evaluate, you know, the situation. So, you know, and the thing is so everybody wants to sit there and blame just those 2 guys. But again, like I said, so there's more people on the field, there's more people in the coaching staff. But not only that, not only do people get super hyper focused on, you know, the quarterback and the head coach or whatever, but let's look at the owner. What is the owner doing? Right? Okay. So in Stephen Ross's time, he has not proven that his decisions are the correct ones when it comes to, you know, the football operations. He does great in the community. I mean, obviously he does great with his own businesses. Fabulous. He does great things in the community, which is wonderful. Obviously, and he does great things as far as like, you know, he paid for the stadium, which he should do. The owners make, you know, millions upon millions of dollars, and they should pay for the stadiums, right? So all of that's good, but he hasn't proven to make the right decisions with the front office and the coaching staff. And so we need to, I think it's time to start, you know, looking at that more. And certainly, you know, if I'm going to give it time, right? So we do have a new coaching staff and we have a new front office. And so I'm going to give them the 5 years that, you know, or as long as they stick around, I think they should have 5 years, and then we'll go from there and we'll see what happens. After that time, then we'll evaluate and, you know, take it from there or whatever. But anyway, so Stephen Ross needs to prove though that this is the right choice. And if after 5 years it's not worked out, or if, you know, things don't go well over the next 2-3 years and then everybody's clamoring for Flores to be fired and so on and so forth, I think we need to take a hard look at our owner at that point and say, you know what, I think it's, you know, the dude at the top that's making the decisions and not making the right ones. So anyway, guys, with that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I hope that did answer your question, Edward. And yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and jump out of here. I hope you guys enjoy my show. If you do, you know, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. And as always, follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.